Hello and welcome back to Patriot Pastime. Today's topic is going to be the Ruger 57. This firearm here, it is chambered in the round that is 5.7 by 28, and I have some common cartridges here on the table for you to compare it to for those who have not seen it or heard of it. This first one here is your 22 long rifle. That's what usually everyone's first rifle is when they're a kid. They learn to shoot, learn to hunt, learn to sight in a scope with a 22 long rifle. So that's one that just about everybody who's watching this video has seen. Your next one is 9mm, 9x19 Parabellum or Luger. That's what the first videos of this channel were about, and that is the most common handgun cartridge out there. The last one is your standard 5.56 or 223. The only thing that differentiates those is the blast pressure. 5.56 is going to be a little bit higher. However, the cartridge and round itself is the exact same size between the two. And the one I skipped, the one with the little blue tip there in the middle, is the 5.7 by 28. That is a polymer tipped hollow point round, which is why there's a little blue tip of plastic on the end there. It is basically a shrunk down version of a 5.56. The cartridge itself is extremely fast, leaves the muzzle at a velocity similar to a 5.56, which is one of the reasons it is unique to a pistol. There are not a lot of pistols out there with a muzzle velocity similar to a 5.56. That being said, we will get the ammo out of the way and go over the magazines next. The Ruger 5.7 comes standard with a 10-round magazine. That's this one right here. You'll notice the plastic base plate at the bottom here is what limits the magazine to 10 rounds. I'll move a little closer so you can see the windows in the side. However, there are 20-round magazines available, and 20 rounds for a standard pistol is a large magazine, which is another reason the Ruger and the FN, anything chambered in 5.7 by 28 is popular. Because the round is so small in diameter, you're able to fit a lot more into a standard size magazine. You'll notice this one here goes all the way to 20 rounds. These magazines are available at any local gun store as an upgrade for your Ruger 5.7. I also do not load any of my magazines to their full capacity because it will shorten the lifespan of your spring in the bottom of your magazine. Even though the spring is a wear item and you can pop the base plate off and change it as a precaution, I just don't load it all the way up. I believe this one has 18 in it. That's my opinion. Everybody's got one. That's just how I keep my magazines loaded. And for all the magazines on the channel, you'll see there isn't a one of them that is totally, fully loaded that we'll be going over in a video. Now, let's move on to the firearm. Now, before I get roasted too hard, I wanted to point out my optic choice for this pistol. The 5.7 or 57 is known for having very, very low recoil due to the size of the round itself. So I wanted to test out Amazon's cheapest micro red dot they sold for a pistol. This is the, I believe it's ADE RD3003 maybe. I bought this a few years ago, so I'm not exactly sure. This comes in at a price point of just about 50 bucks. And I showed you on the Canic before, this one has a Vortex Viper on it. These come in at around $250. So as far as price, for 1/5 or 1/6 of the price, I wanted to have something to compare it to, and it did not disappoint. The 5.7 by 28 is capable with the correct round of setting off tannerite, so I wanted something that was accurate enough where I could set it off from a safe distance. And once I got this thing zeroed in, it has not lost its zero, and it is fairly accurate. It is it's rated for 5 MOA, and I believe it's pretty close. I have set tannerite off with this. It does actually work. However, it does depend on the round you're using. And we'll get into ballistics in a later video, but just know that that is the purpose of this red dot sight on this firearm before anybody questions my optic choice. Now, to get into the firearm itself, the first thing we're going to do, as we do with every firearm in this channel, is show clear so we can point it around and safe for directions. This does not have a magazine in it. It's going to be super hard to see on camera, but how about I just shove my finger in it? Now you know there's no magazine in there. we will put the safety selector on fire and pull the slide back. You will see down in the chamber, if you can, that there is no round in there. So this gun is now clear, which means we can point it in directions not at ourselves, but in directions that are safe to do so with an empty chamber. The 5.7 is a very large frame weapon, and it's due to the round size. When you compare the 5.7 with your 9mm, and get these back in camera, you'll notice that the 5.7 is quite a bit longer, which means that the magazines have to be quite a bit wider to fit that round in there, which means your magazine well gets quite a bit elongated. That being said, I have pretty large hands, and this feels comfortable for me, but I can see how someone with smaller hands and fingers would have an issue with this. So if you're looking to get into the 5.7 world, definitely go to a gun store and hold it. Get comfortable with it in your hand first to make sure it's something that will actually fit for you before just pulling the trigger and ordering one online. This is a hammer fired pistol, and you're not going to be able to see the hammer down in there. Once we get the weapon apart, I'll show you the hammer with my favorite little pointer stick here. But for now, just know that there's a hammer deep down inside there. This is an ambidextrous safety. On this side, just like covered in the last video, you see red. Red is dead. This weapon is on fire because we cleared it. We had to pull the slide back, and when you put this on safe, you can't even move the slide. So that's one of the reasons it was on fire. Now we'll leave it on safe for most of this video, but we will have to put it on fire to rack the slide a few times. Now that being said, we can notice on this that there are some slide cuts due to the length of the slide. I believe this is the 4.5 or 5-inch barrel. Due to the length of the slide, they put some lightning cuts in it to try and lighten it up a little bit. This has essentially no recoil, so you don't need a super heavy pistol in order to mitigate the recoil, so that's the point of the lightning cuts. Ruger did a very good job with the stippling on the grip. It also goes all the way around to the back strap. So it makes gripping this extremely easy and orientating it to the target, whatever you want to call that. Again, I'm a redneck from Kentucky, so vocabulary is not one of my strong suits. It has the slide safety here. It also has a trigger safety, if I can get it to focus. Right there, similar to the Glock and the Canic that we showed in the first video. It has a rail system on the front, quite a long rail, with quite a few different cutouts for light options there. My car gun is actually a Taurus G2C, and it has a rail in the front as well, but there's only 2 notches, which makes light selection pretty slim. You don't want something that hangs way off the end of the gun, so the only way to do it is get something that is slim to package. Now this, having such a long rail, you could essentially mount whatever you want to on the front. It does have a fiber optic front sight. However, it is a standard iron sight in the rear. They are elevated, so if you wanted to go with a threaded barrel and suppress it, you can do that. The trigger pull on this, again, we are clear, is about 3.5 pounds. It is a very long trigger pull, however, at 3.5 pounds, and it is single action only, so it is not going to be a very good bump in the night gun unless you're proficient with clearing a malfunction. That being said, the overall shooting of this pistol is great. Again, it is extremely accurate, even with my budget-friendly optic on the front here, although it is made in America, by the way. It's made in Oregon. This will hold a group all the way about 100 yards, I think, is as far as I've shot with this. At 100 yards, I can comfortably hit beer cans off of a tree stump. So there's the math algorithms and the dope or data on previous engagements. That's what I use. How far away can I hit a beer can off a tree stump? And with this, at 100 yards, works just fine. And that's going to outdo just about any other pistol that I or anybody else owns. Now, as far as taking this pistol apart, it does come apart a little different than any other pistol that I own, and probably different than any other pistol anybody else out there owns. So we'll get into the disassembly next. Now, just about any other video out there on the internet, when disassembling the Ruger 57, will tell you this here is your takedown lever. If you can see that from the lighting, this here is your takedown lever, and this here is the button you have to press in order to actuate that takedown lever. And any other video out there will tell you to use the thin side of your magazine to push down on that. I don't like doing that because it mars up the bottom of your magazine. It also leaves chunks of plastic on the frame of your pistol. Anybody who owns more than 2 or 3 firearms should invest in some type of multi-tool like this. This one came off of Amazon, I believe was only 20 or 30 bucks. And it comes with everything you would need. It also comes with the barrel bushing tool for a 1911, which is super handy. Saves you from having to use a punch, which this tool also has. It comes with just about every bit you would need to service a pistol or rifle while you're on the range, as well as the Allens and a pick. This goes in the range bag with me anytime I go somewhere to shoot, and this is what I use to actually take this Ruger pistol down. This is advertised as a hammer when you buy this tool. However, I use it to push this pin in. Once I push that pin in, you'll notice that takedown lever protruded out a little bit. You might be able to see some daylight between there now. Once it protrudes out, you can rotate it. You'll hear it click. You can rotate it 90 degrees, and now you'll notice it is pointed down. Now, don't be alarmed if you push this pin all the way out. Sometimes if you're using something like a punch, like a tool like this, you can push that pin all the way out. It's not the end of the world. It'll go back in. We'll do that at the end of this video just to show you how. Just know that it's okay if that happens. Once you have that takedown pin swiveled 90 degrees, you can let the slide go forward. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. That distance, we're going to call that about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Once it does, a normal pistol, your entire slide will slide off the end, and that's it. With the Ruger 57, once it goes forward that 1/8 of an inch, you just take the slide off. Now, as far as the lower, I was telling you about that hammer that was back there that you probably couldn't see. This is that hammer right here. So you can notice I can cock it just like a double action. And there it is going forward. However, when it's in the slide in that little channel, it's super hard to see. So I told you I would show you that hammer once we took it apart. There it is. As far as the lower, there's a lot of polymer in this. I would recommend just hand cleaning it. It only takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and there are a lot of little pieces in there that you do not want to get out of place in an ultrasonic cleaner. Again, I would recommend some Q-tips and some solvent cleaner and just go into town. As far as the slide, once you get it off, it comes apart very similar to a standard pistol. You'll take your recoil spring out, which is this guy right here, and then your barrel will come out. Now you'll notice this barrel, once I get it out of the giant slide, is very, very small, and that is because of the small diameter of the round itself. The further we get into these videos on this channel, we're going to talk less about disassembly and assembly and functionality of a pistol, and more about ballistics, the difference between rounds. I own some extremely odd calibers that you may have not seen before, the 5.7x28 being one of them. So especially once we get into ARs, everybody's seen a 5.56 AR, they've beat it to death. I've got some goofy ones like 458 SOCOM and stuff, so we'll get into ballistics and what makes them different from a standard AR. What makes this different from a standard pistol is the size of this barrel. Again, if you watched any of the last videos, you saw me pull apart the the TP9 SFX. You saw me pull apart the Beretta, the 92FS. You'll notice that this barrel is tiny. If I compare it to my pinky is twice the diameter of this barrel, and that's because of that tiny little round that comes out the end of it. Now, as far as reassembly, the barrel will drop back in just like any other pistol, go back to its nice little home there. There is no terraces on this barrel for the spring. I'll get you sideways here. You'll notice there is a little angled piece here that is the feed ramp there, and this is where your spring sits. There is no notch, no bucket, no anything. Once your spring, and again, on the recoil spring, there is one side that is flat, one side that has a hole in it. Your hole side will go forward. There is a hole at the end of your slide. If you try to put the flat side in there, it won't fit in the hole. So, again, lighting's pretty terrible right there. You can't really put this one together backwards. So the whole side is going to go into the slide first, and then you'll force that spring forward and sit it right there against the angled piece. Where'd my pointer go? Right here against the angled piece. Now, when it comes to attaching it back to the frame, or the lower, Generally, when attaching a slide to a lower, you'll start at the end like we talked about with those guides and just slide it all the way forward. The 57 is quite a bit different. You remember how we took it apart? It only goes forward about 1/8 of an inch and then pulls straight up. Same exact principle. So the lower has these lugs that stick out right here, one on each side. And then in the slide, get the barrel back straight again. In the slide, you'll notice there are some grooves, just straight up and down so you can see it. You'll notice there are some grooves right here and one on the other side. Those lugs have to fit into those grooves. Once you get that perfectly lined up into those grooves, the slide just drops back down onto the lower just like that. Now the easiest way to do this to save you from having to hold it in place is just to go ahead and put the slide all the way back and lock it. You can actuate this takedown pin even if the slide is locked all the way to the rear. So to keep you from having to line it up and put it in the right spot, I would recommend just locking the slide back to the rear. And that goes the same for when you're taking this thing apart. You can lock the slide to the rear and it makes it easy. It makes it not fall off. If you're trying to actuate that pin upside down, and you do, the barrel will actually, or the slide will go forward that 1/8 of an inch and fall off. So the easiest way is just to lock it to the rear, and then that slide lock keeps it in place. Once you have your slide on and locked to the rear, you can take that takedown lever and rotate it 90 degrees and then lock it back in place with just by pushing it in. You will hear a click, and now you'll notice it's flush back to the pistol. After that, you can let your slide go forward with the slide lock or manually, and that is full assembly and disassembly of the Ruger 57. Now, I did tell you we would show you what happens if you accidentally shoot this takedown lever across the room. I've done it. If you own one of these 57s or 57s, you've probably done it yourself. I'll show you the easiest way I've found to get that lever back in. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to walk into the gun store, gunsmith, a handful of parts, ask them to fix it. If you use anything smaller than the diameter of the hole for this takedown button, this is possible to happen. I'm going to use my pointer tool here. Normally, to take this out, I use the butt side of this hammer. However, I've seen people try to use a punch in that hole thinking it's a spring-loaded pin. If that happens, and I'm probably going to shoot this across the table into the magazines, if that happens, the whole pin will come out. Woo! Just know that that is not the end of the world. Once that takedown pin comes out, the pistol itself thinks that that pin is in the right position. So it will actually let you move the barrel forward and take it off. Barrel slide. That is the way you have to get this pin back in anyway. So if that ever happens, go ahead and just take the slide all the way off. Now, once you're looking at the lower, and again, lighting is not the best in here, you'll notice there are some flappers right here. I call them flappers. I don't know what they're actually called. Somebody out there knows the right name to them. I call them flappers. They're spring-loaded. There's one here, and there's one on the opposite side. That is actually what rides on this takedown lever on the rounded parts. You'll see a flat spot in the middle. There's rounded parts on each side. That's what rides onto those. So the only way to get this takedown lever back in is to actually hold those flappers forward. Normally I use a little flathead, or sometimes you can get your fingernail in there, but you can hold those forward and then slide that pin right back in where it goes, and we'll do that in just a second after we're done talking about it. There is a detent hole on this takedown lever right there, and that's what actually locks it in place for its 90-degree turn when you're taking it apart. And then there's a detent slot down here on the other side is what's supposed to keep it in place so it doesn't shoot across the room. That being said, an excessive amount of force, it's a tiny little detent pin and spring, it's not going to hold it in place. Just know that that detent is down in here and does not come flying out, which is why I said it's not the end of the world if you shoot this thing across the room. Anybody that's lost a takedown pin out of an AR knows those detents shoot across the room at Mach Jesus, and you can never find them. So you take your takedown lever. It doesn't matter which way you orient it when you stick it in. Just put it back in the hole it came out of. It will go back in the same side as the mag release. Once you get it started in that hole, you will use whatever tool you need to push those flappers up. And you'll notice when I did that, well, hopefully you noticed, the takedown lever dropped down about 1/2 of an inch. Now it's stuck on the detent. That's keeping it from coming all the way out. Usually you can just wiggle it around that detent. You'll hear a good solid click, and then you'll know that it's back in its home where it should be. Now this is the part that's By the way, here's those flappers. Now that that's in there, you can probably see them easier. It's these right here, the ones I'm moving with my finger. Once you get it to the detent, now is when it's important what orientation this takedown lever is in. So right now, it's in the orientation it would be in if you were firing it. It is parallel to the slide. You need to rotate that, pointing towards the trigger as if you're taking it down. That will allow that detent to slide back into place. Once you do that, with a ton of effort and a nice little prayer, just grab it and force it back in its hole. You'll feel that detent give way a little bit, a nice click where it pops back in its seat. That's totally normal. Now you have this right back to the disassembled phase. You can put your slide back on, aligning those lugs back up. Pull your slide back to the rear. Maybe. And rotate that takedown lever back to its home. Push it in. Let the slide forward. And you are back together. So again, if that takedown pin or takedown lever goes shooting across the room, don't get too upset. It's not the end of the world. You can get it back in, and no parts go flying. That's going to wrap it up on the Ruger 57. If you have any ideas for guns in the future, just drop them in the comments below. Looking around here, another firearm that's still fairly new to me and one we haven't covered on this channel yet would be a 22. Now, I don't own a whole lot of semi-automatic 22 pistols, and revolvers get kind of redundant to cover because they're all pretty much the same. One I just recently picked up is the Smith & Wesson M&P, little 15, whatever their model number is, M&P 22 compact. This one did come with a threaded barrel. I have got to shoot it a few times, so I think the next video will go over this. Until then, you guys have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the video. Seems to be a common trend. I keep forgetting to put small things in the video, so I film it after. One thing I forgot to mention about the 5.7's magazines are, you'll notice when you look down the magazine, it's very, very similar to, say, a 5.56 magazine as far as how the rounds sit inside that magazine. So for loading and unloading, unlike a normal pistol where you have to push the round in and slide it back under those feed lips, these are metal magazines, by the way, so the feed lips are metal. You can load it just like a standard AR. You can sit the round above it and just push it down, and you'll hear that pop just like a normal AR. And if you watch anybody load metal magazines, the last thing they do before they put it in the weapon is do this. That's just to make sure all the rounds are seated all the way back against the back of the magazine for feeding issues. Forgot to put that in the main video, but seemed important, so I figured I would throw it in.